Welcome back to the shed tonight. We are going to run through a few bits and pieces in regards to the auto conversion. Haven't really been making much progress, been waiting for some parts from Isuzu and had to chase up some parts from wreckers and whatnot. Had to get my hands on a torque converter and a bell housing for a D-Max because the auto, which I briefly touched on in the last video, but the auto itself is out of a V6 Hilux, so a 2014 V6 four-wheel drive Hilux. So it's running the stick transfer instead of the electric transfer in the D-Max, which I think may be slightly more reliable. I don't know, we'll find out. I haven't really heard any good or bad. There's obviously not many V6 Hiluxes getting smashed around the bush, so I'll be willing to test it. So we're running the A750 5-speed out of the 2014 Hilux, which is the same auto, same case basically as what comes in the 2012 to 15, 16 the model D-Max. So it was a pretty easy conversion to adapt it to the D-Max. We just used a factory D-Max bell housing, D-Max converter, which was just super hard to get because you can't seem to find any D-Maxes getting wrecked, and people don't really want to part with bits and pieces from them. So yeah, I managed to get my hands on them. So the auto is currently in the car. I'll run through a little bit of a time lapse of me pulling the manual out and doing a few little bits and pieces on the car, pulling all the dash and everything out. So I've managed to get my hands on, the bell housing, the torque converter, there on the auto. So the auto is currently in the car. Just got a temporary cross member under there just to hold it in place while I'm doing bits and pieces. shifter, so that just bolts all in. Everything's basically the same under there, and a bit hard to see, but I've got this little temporary shifter that I've just jigged up just to make sure it all shifts and moves under there. So unfortunately it is kind of, can't really see, but that's the shifter under there, so it's in an awkward spot, but I reckon I've got a bit of an idea to be able to adapt it in and make it look nice. So we'll see how that all goes. So coming in under the car, it all fits up pretty nice in the tunnel. Like I said, it's basically the same case as what the D-Max is, so plenty of room for activities under here. The cross member lines up pretty much perfectly to the mount there, so that'll be pretty easy. But the issue I'm going to have is, it's a bit hard to really see at the moment, but front tail shaft. So the front output shaft is about 100 mil further back than the D-Max, which means because I have a solid front axle that requires a tail shaft that goes up and down, so the tail shaft is going to foul on that cross member, so I'm gonna have to design something slightly different without letting it drop down too far so it doesn't become a hang-up point. So I'll get that sort of drawn up while I'm waiting for other bits and pieces. But yeah, so it all bolts up pretty nice. It's just obviously in there with a couple of bolts at the moment, just so I can see. So one of the handy things that I'll have to confirm, but I'm pretty certain that just here is a tail shaft speed sensor, so that could come in handy where the D-Max original manual didn't have it. I'm not sure about the autos, but yeah, might be able to use that for little bits and pieces to do with tuning and stuff instead of the wheel speed sensors. So maybe able to correct the speedo. I don't know, we'll find out. But the rear tail shaft, it is actually in the exact same spot, so that's good. It doesn't really have to change. It lines up with the center bearing nicely. The only difference is with this is it doesn't have a slip yoke that goes into it, so I'll have to make a new tail shaft with a slip joint in the back section, so to allow obviously for the tail shaft to move in and out when it's flexing. So a few little changes, but nothing overly complicated. So yeah, so far so good. Something I've been told about the factory converter is they do have issues with the lockup ring. So apparently the way, I don't know the inside of converters, some other people might be able to elaborate more in the comments, but apparently the little thing that sticks onto the friction ring that actually gives you that lockup in these is a pretty poor design, so it doesn't grab on by a great deal. So be sending that away to TCT converters in Vic. They'll pull the thing apart, try and reduce the stall speed a little bit, because this thing makes a hell of a lot of torque down low. It's making, you know, nearly 30 pound boost at 1600 RPM. So we need to, try and tighten that up a little bit, which will just make it slip a little bit less, keep the trans temperatures down. It'll just benefit us a fair bit off-road, I reckon. So yeah, get that stall speed reduced, get the friction ring upgraded, so we've got some nice, solid and reliable lockup. So on the freeway, overtaking, you know, won't have to gear down and rev it, should just be able to rely on the torque and get it all to work. So yeah, I'll get that sent away, hopefully get it back nice and quick, because that's, you know, a pretty important part. The other thing I need to confirm is the backspace from the pump, just in case that is different to the D-Max. So I'll have to measure the pullback, so how far the converter gets pulled out of the auto to bolt up against the flex plate. So that's something that I don't know if it is the same. I haven't obviously got an auto here out of a D-Max to compare it, so I'll have to measure off the back of the engine where the gearbox bolts up to, get a measurement from there to the flex plate, and then get a measurement from the converter once it's seated completely in the box, a measurement from there to the actual outside of the bell housing, and that will give us that pullback, which generally you want to be between 2 and 3 mil. It really doesn't pull back out of the auto much at all, otherwise you just start to reduce how much bite you got on the splines and you'll have issues. So got to confirm that, just in case they might have to extend the feet a little bit or machine it down, who knows, to get it right. But hopefully it's pretty good, so we don't have to do too many mods to it. Try and keep it as factory as possible. So send it away, see how they go. So one of the questions I've been getting asked a little bit about the conversion is, how is it going to integrate? How's it going to drive? How's the gear shift's going to be? So the feedback I've had so far from Wholesale Automatics is that they will provide a base tune for the auto. So it'll be what they think is going to be most suitable for that auto to run, shift points, all that kind of stuff. But it is fully programmable. So once you buy the kit, they'll give you a setup, a plug and play loom, There will be a little bit of wiring, which I'm not 100% sure on yet. I've got to get onto those guys and confirm exactly, but you need to give it TPS, vehicle speed, throttle position. There's a few little things that need to be wired into it from the car. It's a bit of custom wiring, but they do supply an A750 plug and play loom, so that side of things will be easy. And then, yeah, just need to get on the dyno, see how it all goes, check the lockup. All these things are stuff I'm not overly familiar with, so I'll fill you in as we go. But the CompuShift itself so far seems pretty impressive of all the perks and everything you can get by running it. So it means no valve body upgrades because you can select, you must be able to adjust the converter pressure, pump pressure, all that kind of stuff. So that'll get the shifts nice and firm, reduce the chance of it slipping between gears. So a bit of a costume change. I'm just sitting here doing some editing and I've noticed that I've stuffed up some of the footage. So apologies for my head being cut out in some of it. I can't really bother filming it again. So you're just going to have to deal with it in this video. I'll work on it in the coming videos. So I'm going to get stuck into a lot of those details that we went through in the video. So we're going to do a lot of that torque converter measure up. I'll film all that, explain all that to you. So you get an idea of what I was talking about there, see it firsthand. So next video, we'll try and drop one next week and explain a lot of that stuff. So stay tuned.